All right, everyone, so this is your last essay of the course, and this one is different than the previous two. This is a literary analysis essay. So you guys are reading In a Grove, which is a different story. It's slightly unsettling. I agree with a lot of students who say that, they don't quite know what to think about it. What you're going to do for this one is basically look at breaking down the piece of literature using literary elements and terminology. So you want to focus on either a character, a theme, or an approach. So you guys have studied these sort of different approaches. You looked at themes, and then you looked at how to analyze characters. So you can choose whichever one of these sort of verticals is interesting to you. Whichever you choose, keep a couple things in mind. So, for example, if you're talking about a character, you want to look at their behaviors and their motivations. So you want to think about what characteristics can we get from that character, from the story, based on everybody else's descriptions of them? And then what do we know about them from what they tell us? How do those characteristics conflict, or where are they synonymous with each other? You can also look at, is the character trustworthy? So are they telling the truth? How do you know? Why might they be lying? What do they have to gain or lose? And you can also look at the background of the characters. So in this case, I've had students pull in evidence that discusses sort of the Japanese culture and what's happening during this time period. That's something that you could pull in based on gender or religious beliefs of the time period. What elements of this character's existence are important to our understanding of how they exist within the story? If you choose theme, you're going to be looking at an overall point or message of the story. So you're looking at, what is the reader supposed to get from this story? And what evidence do you have that supports that theme is valid? The approach is looking at this school of thought or the way that you read the story. So you guys have looked at different schools of thought, different approaches. So you can be looking at how, say, for example, a new critic might approach this story versus, say, a gender critique might work in this story, or historical critique. There's a lot of different approaches you can take with a story like this. So you're making sure that you have a solid argument that makes a claim about the story. So your claim would be something to do with the character, the theme, or the approach. And then you have a good introduction with the thesis statement, which is your argument, solid reasons and evidence to support, and even some counter-arguments with refutations. And then a solid conclusion as well. So your essay is going to be 3 to 4 pages in length and is due on Sunday, July 29th at midnight. As always, MLA formatting is required. All assignments will be checked for plagiarism, and then make sure you adhere to the minimum page length. There's no research in this one, so really there's one thing you have to submit, which is a final draft with a bibliography, which should have the short story as the only source listed on there. So I've given you guys some example topics or ideas that you could use or think about when you go to create your own argument. So for example, if you're going to look at characters, there's a couple of different things you could talk about. You could look at how the character is portrayed in a text. So look at the motivations, look at the behavior patterns, find out if that character is lying or not lying and why. Look at who's the protagonist and antagonist in this story. Are they flat? Are they round? Are they dynamic? What does the dialogue show us about those characters? Are they using how does the unreliable narrator operate within this story? There's a number of different things that you could really be looking at when it comes to character analysis in this story. You also could look at themes. So again, themes that you could choose to argue about. You could say that there is an issue of truth versus perception in the text. You could argue about honor and virtue and what those mean in this text. You could also argue about the idea of love. What is love? What constitutes love in this text? You could also look at the ideas of tradition versus rebellion and how those play out through different characters. If you did the approach theme, you could look at a feminist reading of a particular character and her role in the story. You could look at a cultural reading of the story and how it relates to an idea within the narrative. You could look at a psychological reading of a character. Is that character a reliable or unreliable narrator and why. You could also look at a critical reading of certain symbolism within the story. There's a lot of different directions you could go. It's up to you what you choose. So as you make your choice, think about what you would like to do or say about this piece of literature. Again, you're not limited to these examples, but these should be helpful in getting you in a direction that helps you create an argument about the text. So make sure that your essay has all the parts of an argument. So you still have an introduction with the thesis statement, body with evidence, which is quotes from the story, a solid conclusion, and so forth. You can and should bring up opposing points of view. So in literary analysis, it's just as important as any other argument to say, I understand that my point of view is not the only one, and then point out what other people might have to say about it, but then refute those opposing points of view so that you have a solid logical flow throughout your argument. You are actually not going to be completing an outline. Don't worry about that. There is an example outline below if you choose to use an outline. All you need to do is submit your final essay. So the optional outline, with the bibliography, of course. I've presented you, I've given you an optional outline here that can help you if you're not sure where to start. That helps you work through your thesis, your main ideas, the evidence you would use to support that, and then any refutations as well. So if you have any questions about this, let me know, but otherwise it should be fairly easy. So please make sure to take your time, do a really good job writing your essay and editing your essay, because the essay is the entirety of this essay grade. There's nothing else to balance it in terms of outlines or other assignments. So if you have questions, let me know, but otherwise you guys should do great.